Episode 4, Shrinking. Tell me if I'm the only one who experienced this. Your parents enrolled you and your siblings in a variety of activities, or maybe they didn't. But through the course of going to school, meeting and making friends, and growing up, it became apparent to you that your siblings were much better at some activities than you were. I mean, a lot better. But you had some consolation. The reverse was also true. You were better at some activities than they were, or at least that's how you saw it. And so it kind of all evened out. But here's the point I'm getting to. Once you came to this realization, how did you handle the activities that you weren't so good at? Did you lean into them so that you'd improve or maybe even overtake a sibling? Or, as you became aware of, let's just call them your rankings in various activities, did you find yourself stepping back a little when participating in their activities so that your siblings could own theirs? And you found and owned yours. And when you found it, you doubled down on it. You practiced a little bit more. Let's just say you made it clear that you had staked a claim and you focused on what you were good at. Because that's what I did. Let's take piano, for example. Reading music was difficult for me. To be honest, I'm not even sure I ever knew how to read music, and definitely not sight reading, which feels like a huge disappointment now that I've said it out loud. So what did I do instead? I compensated for my lack of sight reading by watching when Mrs. Lane played a piano piece for the first time, and I listened very closely. When, after completing the piece, she'd ask me to play it, I'd either feebly attempt it, oh, how I dreaded that, or I'd create a diversion and make an excuse so that there was no time for me to play it. Because I knew the only way I could play that piece was to deconstruct it at home, slowly and painstakingly reassemble it, and then use muscle memory to repeat it. And I hated every minute of it. One, because it was exhausting. And two, because I felt like a fraud. Playing piano came easily for everyone else I knew, including my sister. She read music effortlessly, or so it appeared to me, practiced with little prompting for hours each week, and, go figure, played much better than I did. I knew I could never do this. It was impossible. I begged my parents to let me quit. But my mom, disappointed that she was never given the opportunity to take piano lessons when she was a child, dreamed that all of her children would play. So she paid $5 each for the half-hour lessons each week, and I suffered through mine until I was allowed, 4 teachers and half a dozen years later, to quit. My gifted sister continued to play even in college. The same was true of writing. As an English and history major, I wrote a lot of papers. Unlike many of my friends, I wrote not because I particularly enjoyed writing, I didn't, or that I was particularly good at it, I wasn't, but because it was necessary to get the A. I took one creative writing class as an undergrad and found, much like Ira Glass describing his first on-air radio experience, that he was acting like a broadcaster instead of broadcasting. I was trying hard to be a writer, but I wasn't writing. And you could tell. I could tell anyway. My sister, on the other hand, wrote effortlessly. Anything, poetry, prose, analytical writing. I was only grateful to step back and allow her the spotlight because I sure as hell didn't want it. Sidebar. So at this point, you're probably thinking, what did she excel at? Broadly speaking, homemaking. thanks to my step-grandmother, who got special dispensation from the Pope to enroll me in 4-H's introductory cooking and sewing classes when she met me at age 8. Through the years, these skills expanded to baking, organization, productivity, multitasking. It should be noted that all of these skills were highly valued in our family because in our family, a woman's role was to support a man and the church. And since I was taught from an early age that being a wife and mother was my lot in life, I was highly favored. It turns out being highly organized and very productive are skills that translate well to many occupations, but project management in particular. When I became an editor, everyone around me assumed I was a writer. I mean, because what does an editor do? Who knows, right? Spoiler alert, there's a lot of project management involved. But I insisted I was not a writer. If I attended an event and would be introduced as an editor and writer, I was quick to point out that that was not me. I was not a writer. Well, I was an okay writer, but as a managing editor, I knew great writers. I hired great writers, but I was not one of them. That was not my lane, and I recoiled from the title, despite evidence to the contrary. You see, when my former boss, an internationally known endocrinologist, came across something I'd written for Portland Family Magazine, he took the time to email me to let me know he'd seen it, adding that I was a good writer. This gave me pause. I trusted him. I knew he was a good writer, a great writer, and now he was telling me that I was a good writer. I've asked myself many times since then, what else might I be good at that I've never considered before? Are there skill sets that I've grown into that I'm unaware of or been exposed to? Or what evaluations, if they can be called that, did I maybe even get wrong when I was young? In what ways did my shrinking from activities, even titles, impact who I became and the subsequent choices I made? Because I know they did, and that hurts a little because I did that to myself. But there's only so much value in looking back. So today I ask, what am I good at now? How do I want to be identified today? What do I want to embody? How do I want to show up? What do I want to do? That's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to email me and drop comments on TikTok. I appreciate you. Keep them coming. Email me at mary@maryrarick.com with my Act 4 in the subject line. You're going to want to tune in next week because a new opportunity recently presented itself. And while I'm still gathering information before making a commitment, I'm leaning towards giving it a try because that's what this year is all about, right?